Draymond Green slated to return for the Warriors tonight against the Timberwolves. And look, they're having an easier time winning. And they've even been named Sports Illustrated's Sports
that's a great cover.
Of the Year. It used to be Sportsman of the Year, then it became Sports Person of the Year.
Typically doesn't go to teams.
Now it's Sports People of the Year. This is actually the only fourth time ever, Mark, a team has received that honor. So you are around this team all the time, and one of the biggest weapons they have, we talk about, they learn to weaponize joy, right? They have gotten back on track. It's true, though, and they have gotten back on track since that rough patch. We haven't seen them be as joyful as they were at the beginning of the season when Clay was setting his record, headband Clay, and Steph was going crazy, and KD was bombing the Garden. Do you think you will see them get that, not just that cohesiveness back, but that joy back as well?
Yeah, they got a nice, and they're not a moral victory team, but I think in Toronto they definitely got a moral victory there with a couple guys still out, and they could have won that game. The Milwaukee win was huge for them. They had Saturday off. Cousins is on the way to get back. Steph's back. Green's coming back. McKinney, people don't speak about him. He's back. I think they're back and fine, and the only thing that's bothersome to them is fans talking trash about Draymond and KD, which that's not going to stop.
You know what's interesting is I was thinking about the Warriors a lot while I was out and on maternity and everything. And you watch how they play and think about it in terms of their dynasty continuing or not continuing. In the history of dynasties, usually a dynasty falls apart from within. Or because somebody gets hurt and somebody has to leave. This dynasty, in a lot of ways, could last for 5, 6, 7 more years. And the only team that really looks like it could even knock them off is themselves. And I think what's happened in the last month or two is they've seen a few teams where they actually are being challenged. Like when you play Toronto and it's a challenge. When you play Boston and it looks like a challenge. When there's other teams out there now where it wasn't just them from within, right? Until now it's been from within. Can they still sustain it? Can they keep themselves together? I think now they actually have some competition out there. And if you look at the history of dynasties, Lakers, Celtics, and then the Lakers against the Bulls and the Pistons. There were other teams that kept them together. They may not like each other, but they hated the other team more.
Real quick,
the Warriors
I
are finally there.
Somebody within the organization say they needed this to remind themselves that their bleep doesn't stink. Does stink.
That's right. That's right.
They thought the opposite for a while.
I mean, for a long time, it was just them against them.
And we had Scottie Pippen talking just about that and sort of the way his Bulls team fell apart and sort of the role Jerry Krause and Phil Jackson and everybody played in that. So it'll be interesting to see. I do want to get to Boogie Watch. Mark, you reported.
No music for that?
Well, we had the Hay Watch, and then we had the crossed out. Here we go. Yeah, see, look.
Ooh, okay.
Right?
He's in Santa Cruz.
He's going to wear glasses like that. You can't do anything. You can't get him a graphic or a gift.
You reported that Boogie is joining the Warriors G League affiliate in Santa Cruz for practice. He is expected to speak shortly. But, Mark, what can you tell us about his timeline?
He'll practice on Monday. He'll practice on Wednesday. The expectation right now is he won't play with Santa Cruz on Friday. They have back-to-back games Friday and Saturday. I was hoping he'd play with his brother Jalil, who looks just like him. That'd be fun to see. He's practicing against his brother, but there definitely is some rust that he has to get out. There was some word that maybe he's dragging his leg a little bit. So
that's interesting.
These 2 practices are very important for him.
So when I was around the Warriors last, I kept pushing, like, do you think Boogie will be back by Christmas? You know, that big Christmas Day game against the Lakers. And everyone I talked to said, we don't think he'll be back by then. And then when I heard about this G League practice, I was like, wow, is that timetable being moved up? You don't feel, though, that timetable is being moved up. Not that it was an official timetable. He will obviously come back when he's ready.
I mean, he's a 4-time All-Star. He's got to dominate these practices. These are guys that, with all due respect, are beneath him. And if he's dominating, maybe they think that. But I think I'm in the same boat with you, that they're being cautious. They're not pushing him. And what does he need to rush for? Come back when you're ready. I
do like the whole family dynamic the Warriors have going on. You've got the Boogie and his brother. You've got Steph and his brother-in-law. Playing together. That's good. They're going to get the entire. I mean, look, if I had Steph Curry on my team, I would get anyone related to him to come play. Trust me. Kyle Lowry. Let's talk about what happened with him. Scoreless, 0 for 5 shooting against the Bucks on yesterday. He's averaging only 3.8 points over his last 4 games. Now, I specifically asked Kyle about this when I was up there in Toronto last week. The night before we sat down, he had gone 1 for 7. And I said, you only had less than 10 shots. He goes, you can say it. I went 1 for 7. You can say it. And he said it is that he is trying not to be as aggressive because he sees his role as a facilitator right now, integrating Kawhi into this team, all of their moving parts, and that he thinks there will be a time when he kind of pushes forward. Do you buy that?
No. I think he's, this is kind of peculiar for him. He had a great start, an MVP kind of start, so I'm a little surprised. Kyle has to be Kyle. He doesn't have to make anybody fit into his game. He's the leader of the team. He's one of the faces of the team. So, this guy is a great golfer who relaxes and plays that game anytime he has a chance. He needs to just relax and play Kyle Lowry basketball.
Well, and I think the part that I'm concerned about is just who these games have been against, right? It's been against good teams.
Good teams.
Teams that they're going to see against the Celtics, the Bucks, or the Nuggets, right? Like, these are, when he's had playoff issues, it's been in the playoffs with the stage set against good teams. So just for his mental, like his confidence there, you don't want to have your bad games against the good teams because that's what you draw upon when you get back into the situation. That said, it's still kind of early.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, I say this every time we talk about the Celtics. Guess what? These teams intend to be playing until May. They certainly look like they intend to be May, maybe even June. There is a lot of time to get rhythm back and sort of aggressiveness or confidence or any of that. But it's something to watch, right?
Yeah,
so we'll keep an eye on it. Let's talk about the Chicago Bulls. They lost by a franchise record 56 points. No, that is not a typo, to the Celtics on Saturday. New coach Jim Boylan setting the tone early when he subbed out all 5 of his starters in the first quarter of the game. Did it again early in the third quarter of the game. After the loss, the Bulls were scheduled to practice on Sunday. However, the Bulls instead held a players-only meeting that lasted 2 hours. There's a little conflicting reports, and it kind of goes back to whose side. Whenever you have 2 people in the room, they've got 2 different sides to a story. Did the players just say we're not practicing? Did Boylan allow them to not practice? There's definitely been some pushing back from Boylan on the notion that the team was going to boycott. He says, quote, "That is not true. I don't like that narrative. I don't want that out there. That is not true. The truth is we had a couple guys that thought a Sunday practice was excessive after the week that we had, and they have to trust me that if I bring them in here to practice, I'm going to manage their legs and manage what we're going to do." So, Ramona, you've been reporting on this all morning. What can you tell us about what's really going on in Chicago?
Look, I mean, they made a coaching change for a reason. And they brought in Jim Boylan to be the heavy. He's going to change the culture. That's his mandate. And from what I'm told, Gar Forman and Jim and Pax were in the meeting that they had. And I think he has the full support of management. I think he has the full support of ownership to be doing this. And it's one thing if you're going to call meetings, if you're going to lay down the law here, you're going to try to change the culture and you don't have support of management. But he has the full support not only of his bosses, but of ownership. And players know that. And from what I'm told, they had this players meeting, and in the NBA you don't practice after a back-to-back usually, right? So I understand players being concerned about that. I understand. From what I understand, it was mostly Zach LaVine who was trying to stick up for his fellow teammates, being a leader on the team, saying we shouldn't have to have a practice here. This is too much. This is excessive. From what I'm told, Zach and Jim have met since this, and they've cleared the air. They feel okay now. Chris Haynes and Vinny Good will have a report on Yahoo that they had spoken to the Players Association before all of this was happening on Sunday. But I think
spoken to the Players Association to sort of protest the fact that after a back-to-back, we're being made to practice here. Is that what?
Correct. Yeah, and I think that was what you would do. That's when you have a union. You go to them and you check if we're not going to practice. What are our rights? How does the union feel about this? But from what I understand, Zach and Jim Boylan have already spoken about.
They've since talked about that.
And there's talk even of forming a leadership group of players that if there's ever issues like this again, they know how to go to the coaching staff and they open the lines of communication. So I think you have to look at this big picture, which is he was put in as head coach for a reason. And if you have an organizational mandate to try to change a culture, this is how you do it. And you make statements like Jim Boylan obviously was trying to do on Sunday.
And, I covered one of the weirdest things in NBA history. The 2000 Nuggets boycott of practice.
Yes.
I don't know if a lot of people remember that. Where Nick Van Exel and George McLeod drove around the Pepsi Center and made sure none of their teammates came in for practice.
Wow.
They were upset at then Coach Dan Issel because they had just had a long road trip. They played terrible. They had to gas up in Sioux Falls or something on the way home. Got in 3 or 4 in the morning and Dan's like, we're practicing. And Nick and George were actually captains of the team. Were like, no, we're not. I think Tariq Abdul-Wahad and Ryan Bowen were the only 2 guys that ended up
They slip through.
Slipping through that
the net
Ferrari caravan around the Pepsi Center, whatever they were driving at the time, and getting in, and they ended up just sending
Only
Ryan
on this show are you getting this level of information. I love this. And how did that play out in terms of the culture of the team?
It was bad for a while, and like CNN even showed up.
Yep.
They were supposed to play Miami. Talking about not playing Miami, they did. But there was some problems. It was a clash that it took a while to get away, but yeah.
I remember covering the Lakers during the lockout year when they came back in 2011, and Mike Brown it was his first year. So what a year to take over, right? You're trying to change the system, trying to do your thing
no
after
training camp,
no training camp, and so he would just practice all the time because Mike Brown always practiced anyway. And one of the players said, I think what really hurt was they were playing a back-to-back against Denver. It was a home and away. And so the away in Denver, that's always a tough one. Yeah. And he wanted to have a shoot-around on the second half of back-to-back in Denver. And one of the players said to me, we were playing the same team.
Right.
Why do we need to have a shoot-around as we played the last night? But the point was not to play, not because you're playing the Nuggets again. It was because they didn't have a training camp. They were still putting in a system. And the players went along with it. But the difference on that one is Mike Brown, he had the job. He had been empowered. But he didn't have that locker room yet. And he didn't have Mitch Kupchak showing up in a team meeting.
So that was the thing. And yes, I think you're absolutely right that it is so important to note ownership is behind Jim Boylen here. Management is behind Jim Boylen here. They have said to him, we want you to, quote, whip these guys, drill sergeant them into shape. If the players never buy in and you beat them down and beat them down and beat them down and they don't buy into that tough love, it won't work.
Correct.
So there are ways to do that, and Jim Boylen might completely know how to do that. I'm waiting to see. Am I the only one who sees the irony that Tom Thibodeau worked guys too hard, practiced too much, quote unquote, was too hard with guys, had a quote gruff manner with guys? And they got him out of there for Fred Hoiberg, who then got out of there for a tough drill sergeant kind of coat. No? Okay, that's just
things just come back around, don't they?
What can you do? Coming up, we will discuss Joel Embiid and how much he's been playing on the perimeter lately. He had some very interesting comments about that. He's not happy about it. First, though, here's our distant replay. This date, 1996. I don't know what cannot top Allen Iverson, but I guess the guys are going to try with Vashawn Leonard. Let's see what he did.
Pick and roll. Hardaway does not rub Brandon off. Finds Marley. An open three. Short this time. Leonard got it back. 3 seconds left. Leonard.